How's it going, everybody? This is AfroDJMac, and I'm really excited to show you Color Bots by Diego Stocco. Diego Stocco is famous for some of his really interesting sound design experiments, and this particular pack that he's selling is no different. Allow me to explain what's going on here, because it can be a little tricky to understand. Color Bots is basically a way to add interesting resonance and rhythmic movements to sounds that you have. And the way it works is that you take your audio tracks here, or MIDI tracks, whatever you have, and you're going to send them to the return tracks, which are called the Color Bots. Now the Color Bots are listening to these three tracks here, and you can put different samples on here, and depending on which sample you put on, you'll get a different resonance. So let's just kind of focus on the drum sounds for right now. I'm going to add some sounds in here over Power Up, and maybe I'll just grab something different for fun. We'll try this Nectar one. And that has completely changed the characteristic of the overtones of this beat. I'll take out my little chords so you really understand what I'm doing. We'll take Biological. We could add the amount we want by just dialing back the send. We're getting all these interesting changes and tones to our beat. Very interesting. Let's try Heroic. Very cool. So now we've got all this neat resonance going on here. And we could, of course, do this for 3 different color bots. Now, the palette here are the samples that Diego is suggesting that you use for the color bots here. I'm going to stop my clips and just let you kind of preview some of these sounds that he's created with some of his own instrument creations. So if you aren't familiar with Diego's work, he builds some really fantastic instruments. Sometimes they almost look like they're made out of real-world instruments, and other times it's like a combination of like junkyard, very steampunky. Very hard to describe, but he's a super creative guy, very inspirational. And these are just some of the different sounds he's created and all these different textures that can be used. Of course, you can put your own sounds and textures in here and you get different results. But he starts us off with 50 that we can use. That's pretty cool. Pulse. We'll find that over here, pulses. Let's just see what that sounds like over our drum beat. That nearly creates like a bass line. Now something very clever that he's done is he's mapped out, if we go into our MIDI mapping, he's set it up so that we can launch this first row of clips on our color tracks with the keyboard from C2 to C4, and that will change the pitch. So I've got my MIDI keyboard here, and I'm just gonna change the pitch. And I'm basically writing a bass line by changing the resonance of my sound. Which is really awesome. Now if I go to my other sounds here too, we'll get similar results. And now just from a beat and some of these color bots, we're getting some interesting, crazy, sort of resonant sounds. Now, we haven't even looked at the effects, so let's talk about how this is actually working. So, we've got our color bots here, and these are just tracks with no effects. And you'll notice that the volume is already down. And our sends are set to pre, so they're going to listen to any sounds coming out of the clips before the fader. If you want to hear what's going on, you can always raise the volume of the track. We're going to keep them down. Now if we look at Color Bot 1, we get these 2 effects, timbre and tempo. And they're the same in each track, the same exact effect tracks. Now what timbre's got going on is a vocoder and an auto filter. And something very clever that Diego has done is he's got the carrier set to external, and it's listening to color 1. And that's how we're getting the resonant sounds from these different clips we put in here. So even if I were to stop this clip, you can see that we're receiving sound from this Heroic clip right here on Color Bot 1. So we can put in our sound. And now essentially what we've got going on is a vocoder listening to our color bot. So when we change our pitch, get our different sounds. Now we've got the weight, which corresponds to the depth of the vocoder. The attack time, how fast the vocoder starts coming on, and how long it lasts. And you get some really long resonance. Think of this as like your resonance time. We got to add some noise in there if we like. And the character of that noise will change depending on the weight control. We've also got the format. Now that's the first part of it. Now we've also got a low pass filter right here on an auto filter. Well, if we listen, we can crank up our resonance and again change the nature of our moving timbre. We've got this is basically moving our quantize. So we've got quantize on and quantize off. And now we've got the filter envelope moving everything. So if we were to change this a little bit, we'll get different movement to our filter. Or we can, of course, have it moving rhythmically. We could change the value if we wanted to. Sounds pretty cool like that. It's a pretty fast movement. We'll do something much slower. Very nice. So I'm going to turn this right back up and we'll leave this as is. Bring this down. Bring our noise down a little bit too. And now I just want to show you the other color bot. And this is basically an auto pan and 2 beat repeats. So we can turn on our auto panning, change our rate, and I'll turn up the stereo width so you can really hear this moving. So if you've got headphones on or you're listening to some speakers that are spread out far enough, we've got some nice left and right movement going on. We could turn that off. We could turn on our beat repeats. And this is giving us some rhythmic stuff, which we could freeze even. And we get some interesting additions to our rhythm. Now we get this too. Very cool. And again, don't forget, we can be changing the pitch. Get those different effects. We can change our different resonance characteristics. Now this one's called Ghost Town, and you'll notice right away that the sound changes drastically. Something a little more crazy that way. Let's try Madness if we want crazy. Very cool. And remember, this is just this beat that sounds like this. Adding in our color bots gives us all kinds of new depth to that. I'm gonna just really quickly now just play around with a melodic example. So now what we're doing here is I'm kind of adding just a little touch here, and I'm changing the key a little bit. Just kind of dial these in a little bit to take this sort of like kind of basic sounding chords here. Now we've got kind of I'm playing along with the chords. I've added a bass line essentially, the sound with B. Now we can bring back a drum beat. Just like that, I've taken a really simple sound. I'll just mute out our return so you can hear what we're working with. That, and I add in our color bots. And I've got an entire new arrangement essentially. I've got all this thickened out rhythmic resonance stuff. We could always go inside our different color bots on the return tracks and start playing around with the characteristics. Very cool. And one last thing I just want to point out that there is a special color bot mastering chain that's been included, which is kind of nice. A couple glue compressors, compressing certain frequencies, and a limiter. So you are well taken care of with the ColorBot system. It's pretty cool. It's a great way to generate new ideas and add interesting sounds to your music. And if I don't mind saying myself, as a guy that likes to sample things, these sounds are so interesting. I'm just gonna let you hear some of these. You might consider taking a sound like this, creating a new MIDI track, opening up Sampler or Simpler, and dropping this track right into your device here. We'll stop it, and now we've got a pretty cool playable instrument. We could of course do this with any of these sounds. They're very cool. I think you'll be really pleased with the sound design work that Diego's done for this and the overall output you get. So I hope you enjoy this. This has been a lot of fun to check out. Thanks, Diego, for letting me have this. This is AfroDJMac for Ask.Audio, and I hope you enjoy the ColorBot system.